Please give a big Winston-Salem welcome to Andy Zimmerman. And we got our fireplace going over here too. So if it starts to get warm, just let me know. Turn down the heat. All right, so I like to start these talks by getting to know you a little bit as a person and where you come from, some of your background, your early history. And so you told me that you graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, meaning you didn't graduate from high school, you didn't go to college, and you just kind of learned as you went. What was your early life like? What was your family like? Were you from this area?
Yeah, no, I grew up in New Jersey, or northern New Jersey, where right on the New York State border, where it was mostly dairy farms when I was growing up. So countryside, 15 minutes from New York City. That fast went away in the late 60s and became, housing developments, split level houses. My upbringing was great. Introduced to a lot of culture in New York City, and I'm glad I got that culture. But then moving down to North Carolina when I was 17, I like to tell people it kind of saved my life because I was a little bit of a street kid, and the wrong kind of adventure. But I found that better kind of adventure when I moved down to North Carolina.
What was the impetus to move?
My dad was in the furniture business.
Okay.
Yep. So when I left high school, the day I left high school, I drove to work at my dad's warehouse, and
So he was an entrepreneur?
He was, I would say he was an entrepreneur. He was in the furniture business, and that was the family business, although family business was retail, and he started his own furniture business, importing from Spain and Italy and other creative labor markets.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then his company moved to North Carolina?
Yep.
Is that right?
My dad realized that if he was going to survive in the furniture business, he needed to be where the heart of the furniture industry.
So did you guys come down to High Point?
We did. I actually moved to Thomasville and quick found out that the social life and the arts world was a little bit lacking there. So luckily I found Greensboro and really found my real love, which is the outdoors, and North Carolina's not lacking that in any way.
Yeah, we're really lucky here. Was that your first job?
My first job was for my dad, I guess officially, of course, mowing lawns and shoveling snow, and actually washed dishes for a while and worked in a bakery, but I was always at home working.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about the outdoors kind of intrigued you? You're obviously an outdoorsman. You love to go kayaking, hiking, all that stuff. What do you find inspiring about the outdoors?
Well, for me, the first attraction is adrenaline.
Okay.
And so I began my life as a whitewater kayaker, and looking for the difficult rivers to go get my adrenaline fixes at. And then it's just the beauty. To me, we have so much noise in our world around us with computers and cell phones, and the only way I can escape it is mountain climbing or whitewater kayaking and doing things that you better not take your focus off of, otherwise you're in trouble.
Right. What are your favorite rivers?
Lord, the Watauga River in the mountains of North Carolina, the New River Gorge in West Virginia, magnificent. They say it could be the second oldest river in the world.
Ironically
Costa
named.
Rica, Central America. My favorite river is probably the river that I'm on that day.
Right. Okay. So your entrepreneurial journey started with Wilderness Systems, right? So you started manufacturing kayaks out of a garage. How did that happen?
Well, the family business got to be somewhat of a challenge, just the dynamics, and so I thought, okay, I need to make a change. And I think deep down I wanted to go out on my own and prove to myself. I had some things to prove to myself. The only thing I knew other than the furniture business was kayaking. And we started building a few kayaks for ourselves, my buddy and I, who worked for my dad. We were weekend warriors going out kayaking on weekends and working during the week. And we built a couple of boats for ourselves in my dad's factory. And then friends would say, hey, that looks great. Would you make one for me? And that's really what gave us the idea, well, maybe we can make a living at this.
What kind of materials were you building them out of?
Kevlar. Fiberglass.
How'd you know how to do that?
Didn't.
And so you just kind of made it up?
School of hard knocks. Yeah, I mean, my buddy was the making side, and I make with my mouth, selling, and I was the finance part, the marketing part, and he was the making part.
Okay.
But he also, we called him a hardware store engineer, no schooling.
Yep.
Just if you told him make this, he could make it. He'll figure it out, and he did.
So your friends started saying, okay, those are cool.
Yep.
You're going fast. They're lasting as you go down the river. Can I buy them? And then you said, okay, we'll start a company. What were your first steps?
Ready, fire, aim.
Okay.
First steps, just getting materials in, figuring out a place to make it. It was not well planned.
Yeah.
It was seat of the pants, but it was fun, cool, adventurous, and in the day that no family, I would sign a personal guarantee and walk out there saying, where do they think I'm getting the money for that? Kind of nothing to lose kind of thing.
So you're just kind of making it up as you go along?
We pretty much made it up as we went along.
And how quickly did you start to scale? Like, how many customers did you have the first year? Like, what did that look like?
3 or 4 or 5. So the first year we sold $86,000 worth of kayaks.
Okay.
The second year we sold $160,000. And
that was what, in the 80s?
1986 was our first year.
Okay.
The third year we sold $350,000, and we doubled every year for probably 6 years. And then we slowed down to about 50% growth. So over 12 years that we built the business, our average growth was about 60%. So we were pretty much chasing our tails for 12 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Where did you get the money to start?
I had $25,000 saved up.
And then from there, was it self-funded, revenue generated?
It ran out in a month. I can't remember how exactly we made it.
So we've got some product people in the audience, so they're probably wondering, like,
phones getting turned off, bank calling up for my mortgage payment, electricity getting turned off, move 6 people into my house, rent out couches, you name it, whatever it took to pay the bills. Somehow
did you guys take on any outside investment?
I did.
What did that look like?
So, it's an incredible story. I met a guy who called us up. It's back when we were first making fiberglass boats. And it was all handmade stuff. We really never made any money until we started making plastic, mass production. And this guy called me up and said, we've got some exotic sailboats, and we heard you guys make great fiberglass product. Would you make sailboats under contract work? And I had to look at everything back in the day, and I looked at those boats. He called us up, and we went over to Chapel Hill and saw the product. It was pretty cool, pretty different, and I said, no way we're going to make any money on this. And he had gone over to our factory and checked us out. He was the head of the political science department at Chapel Hill University, and a guy that always wanted to be an entrepreneur but never was. And so anyway, he asked us what we thought and would we make them, and I said, I got to tell you, I don't think this is for us. I don't think we can make any money. And he said he really appreciated my opinion, and he said he liked what we were doing, and if we ever needed an investor, call him up.
Huh.
6 months later, I figured out the only way we were going to make any money was get into plastic manufacturing, and I needed about $250,000 to do it. And I remembered, I need to call Andy up. And I called him up and I said, Andy, you remember me? He said, yeah, I remember you. And I said, you mentioned that you'd be interested in investing. And he said, how much do you need? And I said, I think I need $250,000. He said, well, let me come talk to you. He came the next day, talked to me. I showed him my kind of plan of what I had to expand into retail stores and such. And he said, you need $250,000? I said, yep. He reached into his pocket and he filled out a check for $250,000, handed it to me, and he said, I trust you. Let me know how much of your company I own.
Wow. I didn't know that.
$250,000.
I didn't know the political science department paid that well.
He had written several books and worked. So that $250,000, 4 years later, returned him $4.5 million.
Nice. So you guys were able to scale up. What did you buy with the 250? Some molds?
Machinery, equipment, molds.
Okay, and then that allowed you to ramp up production, reduce costs, scale it up. And how'd you get it out across the country? Were you just in the U.S. or?
We had dealers that were buying our high-end product that were just screaming to us for a good-looking price point product. And it wasn't hard to beat the competition back in the day.
So you were already in a bunch of locations.
We were already in a bunch.
But you weren't making a lot of money on them, so you just did a kind of an entry point product. Okay, and then you were able to scale that, bring in some good revenue, and then sell the company 4 years later. And how did that come about? Did somebody approach you, or did you go shopping it?
It was 1998 when the financial markets were flying high, and there was too much money around to buy companies. We sold our business for 8 times EBITDA earnings on the next year's projected earnings.
Nice.
But we had a track record of growth for 12 years that spoke for itself, and we continued to grow the company. But I had no idea what leverage was until I sold the company. All I knew is they were flashing way too much money in front of my face that I couldn't turn down.
So what would a revenue multiple look like for a similar product company today?
I would say it depending on their margins. I mean, back then we were printing money.
Yeah.
For those old enough, I'll say everybody in this room probably remembers The Graduate. Plastic. That's what he said at the end. And, it was just throw $20, $30 worth of plastic in a mold and, pop it out and sell it for 3 times what you got in it.
Right.
So we were making good money back then.
So emotionally, what was it like to sell your company?
The emotions didn't come out until I realized who I had sold to. And I understand venture capital money is in the business to make money, but they kind of took the heart and soul and passion out, and it was just finances. And, I don't think that's a good way to get a return on your investment.
Yeah.
And it proved right. I mean, they struggled after we figured out we didn't like each other. And, of course, I didn't own the company anymore, so I left. And it was the revolving CEO door. All they cared about was having a CEO that was watching the bottom line, and the company became less innovative, and they cared less about the people that worked there. So the people that worked there cared less about saving the money, and
Right. So you don't have aligned values.
Correct.
So is that what led you? You had a non-compete.
At a non-compete.
So then, a few years later, once that ran out, you started a new company.
I did.
Were you kind of like, let me show them, or was it more like?
There was a little of that, but more of they bought a company in South Carolina. When I sold the company, I sold it with the property, which was 250,000 square feet and 60 acres of land. Bought a company in South Carolina that came with the lease that they couldn't get out of. So they sold my building and left all the old employees behind and moved to South Carolina. Some of the employees went, like 10, and the rest stayed behind. And it was right at that time that my non-compete ran out, and a guy called me from Rhode Island saying he had heard that my non-compete ran out and the company was moving to South Carolina, and would I be interested in buying his company? And that was in Rhode Island, and I told him after I thought about it that I would, if he was okay, that I was moving his company down to North Carolina and hiring all my old employees back.
There you go. So, yeah, that's pretty. And then, so how did you continue to run that company for?
I did. So that was 2005. I bought that company and created a new brand which kicked ass for 2 years. Fast forward it to 2007, 2008.
What company was that?
The company that I bought or started.
The one that you bought.
Heritage Kayaks in Rhode Island.
And then what'd you call it?
I called it Legacy Paddle Sports. And then created Native Watercraft, which was also under that umbrella. Kicked ass for a few years, and then along came our recession. And it was the second time that I had to lay people off in my 12-year history of nothing but going up. And we had about 240 employees at Confluence. I built it up. When I bought Heritage Kayaks, it was 30 employees. We built it up to 175. Recession comes along, and I had to lay off 50 people. And
That's a big percentage of the.
I don't do well at that.
Yeah.
And one of my board members told me early on, he said, "You're great at building and you suck at maintaining or pulling back," and he was right. But it affected me enough, along with my business partner, who was only a financial partner, died in a tragic kayak accident.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And so between the downturn in the economy and laying people off and my partner's death, I said, I think it's time for a career change. And so I worked out a deal with my partner's widow and some of the employees, and they bought me out. It's an employee-owned company still going in western North Carolina, and they employ about 75 people. And so I made a career change.
Yeah, so today you're probably better known as a real estate developer, having established The Forge, HQ Greensboro, Studio 503, and I'm sure a bunch of other stuff. I am personally really interested through my roles here at Flywheel and at Mixer around kind of the community development and economic development with those kind of spaces. Can you talk about your motivations with that?
It's hard to pinpoint exactly. A friend of mine who is now investing with me in properties, I call them purposeful properties, said to me when we looked at some property that we could make some good money on, he said, I've noticed one thing about you, Andy. You talk about the Forge all the time, you talk about HQ, and you talk about Studio 503, and you never talk about those other properties that pay for those three properties. And, it's true. The work that I do at HQ and Studio 503 and the Forge is so motivating, community giving and changing and powerful that's what drives me.
Yeah. Have you seen that have any kind of tangible effects in Greensboro. We've seen companies come out of those areas and like community building happening. Yeah, that's awesome. And so that's something that we're working on a lot here in Winston. So we'd love to learn, and kind of trade notes there.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch how it just kind of happens naturally. I am up at 40,000 feet when it comes to HQ and Studio 503. I'm great at starting, I'm great at the vision, I'm great at building, and as my board member said, I suck at maintaining. The details of the everyday ins and outs, but I certainly help energize the spaces. I love to meet the small companies and hear challenges, and but the day-to-day is like people like you.
Well, you've got Joe and Caitlin and all those folks to help.
Yeah, and so I think one of my strengths is identifying the right people for the right place, the right position.
Yeah.
I have been lucky to be able to attract talent like Joe Rotundi and Caitlin and Caleb, and so.
That's awesome. What do you think are the biggest challenges for you with the maintaining, and you've got a big vision, you can grow it up, you can hire, you can fill the roles, and then what's the tough part for you?
Finding balance between work and life, play and work. Work is definitely play for me, when it's the creative side.
Right.
Maintaining side, again, I'm not good at.
Right.
But yeah.
So you'd rather be in your kayak on the river?
Is that a trick question?
Okay, so
I'd rather do both in a more balanced way.
Yeah. Okay. What's next for you?
Music makerspace.
Okay.
Recording studios, performance space, practice space, teaching space, event space. So I bought a 3-story old building right behind Studio 503, which is all artist studios. And so now have about 40,000 square feet between the two buildings, and working on a third one to have a city block of arts for music, for photography, for ceramics, for...
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So last question. It's been a real pleasure, and we're videotaping, and that'll go out to the whole Startup Grind ecosystem all around the world. So is there any kind of words of wisdom or just last thoughts that you'd like to put out there into the collective consciousness?
Words of wisdom, gee whiz, I'm sure we've all heard the, work hard, don't give up. My motivation today is what Startup Grind's mantra was that was put on the screen at the beginning.
Yeah, give first. Yep.
What goes around comes around. Do things for the right reasons, and good things will come from it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let's give them a big round of applause. That was great. Good job. And now I want to open it up to audience Q&A, and I'm going to grab a microphone so we can get it on the recording.
How did you come up with that name? What is that?
Well, so a maker's space is, where people become members and get to utilize what's inside the maker's space. In our maker's space in Greensboro, the Forge, there's 3D printing, there's laser engraving. And in the music maker space, we're going to have piano, we're going to have drums. Now we'll also have you can bring your own, but it'll be a space where people will play, work, create, teach. Yes.
What neighborhood in Greensboro?
Excuse me?
What neighborhood in Greensboro?
East Greensboro.
Which is what, a couple streets I might know.
So East Greensboro is the African American side of town. Not that far. We're downtown. We're 1 mile from Elm Street on East Washington Street, past the depot.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
And I believe you said your first kayak work was out of your garage, really bootstrapping it, and what you call your one of your cohorts, the hardware store engineer. Did some of that inspire you to go after creating a forge type facility like we have here, because it's really needed? And,
Yeah.
that was related.
Yeah, thanks. I think that a makerspace is needed in every city in America, and I'll go as far as saying every town, because, I mean, you know, each of our communities has its own strengths. And, you know, Thomasville was furniture, so was High Point. Greensboro was jeans, and it was tobacco. And every town has got its, whether it's crafts or arts or other kind of manufacturing. And when you get people together that are working together and all trying to help each other, better things will come. If I had a makerspace when I started my kayak business, we would have avoided a lot of mistakes with help from other people who knew more than us. We were, you know, there was no Google at the time. We went to the library. And we did. We went to the library and looked at fiberglass, who knew how to build fiberglass boats. I flew my partner out to Washington. But if there was a makerspace, we would have, and a lot more companies, because as we know, 50% of the companies that start up every year fail. How many wouldn't fail if they had some help?
Deborah?
So I was ecstatic to get to go in the middle of a snowstorm to the opening of Studio 503.
Ah, thank
One
you.
of the few people that drove from Winston-Salem.
Yeah,
I may
thank
be
you.
The only person that drove in the middle of a snowstorm.
Oh, I was there.
Oh, you were there, lovely. And it was an unbelievable opening. So,
Yes, thank you.
I am wondering, and I found it Soho-ish,
Yeah.
and I've been to openings and Soho.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how is Studio 503 going, and are there ongoing shows and openings there that are happening? I seem to have gotten off the mailing list, and I'd like to get back on. And
I'd like to get
how
you.
how are the artists progressing in their careers?
I was amazed at its instant success. We have 16 studios, pretty much from day one they've been filled. And we have photographers, and we have a stained glass lady, and we have painters, and we have textile, and I mean, it's really diverse, and diverse in color as well as art, which
As it was at the opening.
yeah, which I'm proud of. You know, I purposefully went into East Greensboro, and I think great opportunity is there, and bridges are better built through music and art than they are in other ways. And so I'm happy to be a part of bridge building, you know, in the community there in Greensboro. But what I have definitely found is there's a lack of affordable space for artists to be able to work out of. And we offer affordable space for artists. We're community building. It's been interesting. In the beginning, the artists were just interested in leave me alone. I don't have the room in my house. I'm just wanting to get away and do my artwork. And now they're, you know, we'd like to have more open houses. And so we had some live music about a month ago there, and we had about 150 people come through. People are finding Studio 503, and it's no longer over the railroad tracks that you have to travel, although it is, but people feel safe coming over there, and it's working out very well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling your story. How did you scale your business when you really started to take and move up? How did you figure out how you were going to scale without overscaling or underscaling? Because that's always seems to be a problem is, do I build too much or and then have leftover, or vice versa?
So being a salesman, I always had a healthy appetite for growth. And a little bit I was caught up in a whirlwind that I couldn't get out of. I mean, we were just growing. We were in the right place at the right time. And, average of 60% growth. Try hiring 10, 20 new people every year for positions. And, no education. And I had to hire a CFO, and I had to hire, people where I didn't know what I was doing. And so it was a ride that I was on that was fast and furious, and you learn by the school of hard knocks. And then finally I was able to pay people enough money to get the right talent in, like my CFO. One of my favorite stories was I went into the bank to get $1 million line of credit for the first time, and it was a big deal to me, and my banker said, "Andy, you need a CFO. You're not bringing me the right backup work. You're not bringing me spreadsheets." And I'm like, "I can spread these sheets all over your table." That's what I knew as spreadsheets. I'm serious. And he said, "You need a CFO." And then he said, "And I want the job." I mean, we were growing every year, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I ran home and ran back to the office. I ran back to the office and called my accountant and said, "You're not going to believe this, but Randy just asked, he said he wants to be my CFO." And he's like, "Well, wait a minute, how about me?" And I ended up hiring my accountant instead of my banker. And he was the guy that really helped negotiate to sell the company and got us much more money. And, so it took me a while to be able to hire the talent to fill all of the voids that I had because of my lack of education.
I've got a follow-up question to that, and then I think Peter's got a question. If you were to start again today, where would you go to find people, to find a team from those very early days?
There's one question.
So it's a double-edged sword. Where I would go would probably be the river. I mean, passion goes a long way. And I think so many businesses that were started on passion and then lose that passion, what do you think happens to those businesses? So I am a very passionate person, and I like passion in other people, and I think it goes a long way to success. So I'd go to the river.
Absolutely.
Andy, you created wealth along the way with these businesses and chose to pivot towards real estate development. So you learned a lot about finance and capital markets and things of that nature, but it's got to be a pretty different experience, right? So what you obviously enjoy community building and kind of amplifying a community's ability to do the kind of things that you've done. But what are some of the challenges that you don't like about being a real estate developer? What's different that you
Right,
really like?
right on top is politics. Politics. Yeah, I'm not political. I just want to get stuff done. And we were talking earlier with some of the people here. I think that Winston's got a more functional political scene, and Greensboro has a more dysfunctional political scene. But the politics are what challenges me the most, and then there's rewards that come with those challenges. I mean, I was meeting with the city manager this morning and the mayor. I can pick up the phone and call either one of them, and they're going to answer my phone call, and we're pulling together on the same rope, but then the red tape in politics kind of bothers me.
So just trying to get the community aligned around the mission that you want to
Yeah.
undertake, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
You know, and I want to thank Peter for bringing you over here.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
So what we have here is the Triad, coming together, and so many people, perhaps not intentionally, trying to separate it. But what he's done is raw. It's from his dad. It's from trial and error, and what you're doing here is bringing, and that is so valuable. And what the maker of the space is doing, and that's exactly very human. So I want to thank all the free-range humans in the room. Thank you.
Any final questions? We got one more question, and then we'll wrap it up, and we're going to have some more wine and get to know each other.
So I'm fascinated that you took your buildings, your new building and your 501, 503, into East Greensboro. We have East Winston here as well. So how is the temperature of the merging of the cultures and the dance? And are you not only dancing African Americans and Caucasians, are you dancing Hispanics?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We're very diverse. How is it? For me, it's sublime. We are very diverse in Greensboro. We have 2 historically black universities there that are very powerful. I'm right there. I can throw a rock at either campus. And I am all the time working on building the bridges to A&T campus and Bennett College and the community. If you'll go to the building now, you'll see that I have commissioned 2 major murals on the front of the building, which are both civil rights focused. And so the African American community is embracing what I'm doing, appreciating what I'm doing, and then the white community is coming over the railroad tracks finally.
Bring in Andy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody.